The boardroom fell silent. Evelyn Carter, CEO of Meridian Industries, was on her knees. Actual knees on the polished marble floor, her designer suit collecting dust, mascara-streaked tears tracking down her face as she looked up at the unassuming maintenance worker standing before her. "Please, don't make me do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You don't understand what's at stake." Marcus Wilson, a single father with calloused hands and tired eyes, held a simple manila folder. His expression wasn't triumphant or vengeful, just resolute. "I understand exactly what's at stake," he said quietly. "That's why I can't walk away." What happened next would change both their lives forever. If you're gripped by this story already, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that reveal the unexpected heroes walking among us. Your support means everything to us, and we promise this story will touch your heart in ways you never expected. 3 months earlier, Marcus Wilson was doing what he did every morning, trying to coax his 9-year-old daughter Lily out of bed while simultaneously burning toast and checking his phone for messages from work. "Lily bug, come on. We're going to be late again," he called, sliding the charred bread into the trash with a sigh. "They'd have to grab something on the way." "I don't feel good, Daddy," came the small voice from the bedroom. Marcus's heart sank as he walked down the hallway of their modest apartment. The medical bills were already stacked high on his kitchen counter, a mountain of paper that grew with each specialist appointment. Lily sat hunched on the edge of her bed, her thin frame swimming in unicorn pajamas that once fit her perfectly. "Temperature again?" he asked, placing his palm on her forehead. It was warm. Too warm. "I'm sorry," she whispered, as if her illness was somehow her fault. "Never apologize for being sick, Lilybug." He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "We're a team, remember?" Her small head nodded against his chest. One call to his supervisor at Meridian Industries where he worked maintenance, one call to the school, and one call to Dr. Patel. The familiar routine of a day derailed. As he helped Lily into her clothes, his phone buzzed with a text. "Third absence this month, Wilson. We need to talk. Hendricks." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Tom Hendricks, the facilities manager, had been understanding at first. But Meridian Industries was changing, becoming less forgiving of anything that affected the bottom line. The new CEO had made that abundantly clear. Evelyn Carter surveyed the Manhattan skyline from her corner office on the 47th floor. At 38, she was the youngest CEO in Meridian's history and the first woman to hold the position. The board had given her a clear mandate: streamline operations, cut the fat, and boost shareholder value after 3 disappointing quarters. "The Morgan proposal is ready for your review," her assistant said, placing a folder on her immaculate desk. "And the workforce reduction numbers?" Evelyn asked without turning from the window. "Finance says we need to cut 15% across all departments to hit the quarterly targets." Evelyn nodded. "Schedule the department heads for tomorrow. We'll start with facilities and maintenance. They're the least essential to our core business." She didn't see her assistant's slight frown before the woman left. Evelyn had worked too hard to get here, sacrificed too much, to fail now. Her divorce 2 years ago had been liberation, a cutting of anchors that had held back her career. No children, no spouse, no distractions. Just the pure, clean pursuit of excellence. The board meeting that afternoon went exactly as planned. Her presentation was flawless, her vision for Meridian's future articulated with precision and confidence. The nods of approval from the gray-haired men around the table confirmed what she already knew: she belonged here. "Impressive work, Evelyn," said Richard Harmon, the board chairman, as the others filed out. "Your father would have been proud." The compliment should have warmed her. Instead, it left her cold. Her father, the legendary businessman who'd built his empire while remaining largely absent from her childhood, had never actually told her he was proud. Even on his deathbed. Thank you, Richard. I'm just getting started. Marcus sat in the pediatric ward, watching Lily sleep. The machines beeped their mechanical lullaby as his daughter's chest rose and fell beneath the thin hospital blanket. Dr. Patel had ordered new tests, more invasive this time. Her condition is progressing faster than we anticipated, the doctor had said, her kind eyes holding his. We need to consider more aggressive treatment options. More aggressive meant more expensive. Marcus's insurance through Meridian was decent, but it wouldn't cover everything. He was already working overtime whenever possible, taking side jobs on weekends, selling anything of value from his pre-Lily bachelor days. His phone vibrated. A text from his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who sometimes watched Lily when he had to work. Asterisk saw the news about Meridian. Are you okay? Asterisk. Marcus frowned, opening his browser. The headline hit him like a physical blow. Meridian Industries announces major restructuring, hundreds of positions to be eliminated. His stomach twisted. He couldn't lose this job. Not now. Not with Lily's new treatment on the horizon. A soft knock on the door frame made him look up. Tom Hendricks stood there, looking uncomfortable in the sterile hospital environment. Tom? What are you doing here? His supervisor shifted his weight. Thought I should tell you in person. The list came down from corporate today. Marcus felt the world tilt slightly. I'm on it. It wasn't a question. Tom nodded grimly. I fought for you, Marcus. I swear I did. But they're cutting from the top down, and they don't see what I see, how you keep that whole West Wing running despite being understaffed. When? Marcus asked, his voice surprisingly steady. 2 weeks' notice. Severance is 8 weeks' pay. 8 weeks. The new treatment would take months. Tom glanced at Lily's sleeping form. How is she? Not good, Marcus admitted. They're changing her treatment plan. Jesus, Marcus. I'm sorry. Tom's eyes were genuinely pained. Listen, I have a buddy over at Albany Medical Center. They're always looking for maintenance staff. The pay's not as good, but their health benefits are decent. Marcus nodded, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. After Tom left, Marcus held Lily's small hand and made her a silent promise. Somehow, he would fix this. Somehow, he would make sure she got everything she needed. The next day, Marcus returned to work with new purpose. If these were his last 2 weeks at Meridian, he would use them well. He had maintenance access to nearly every floor of the building, including the executive levels. Perhaps there were other positions opening up. Perhaps he could speak to someone with real authority. As he fixed a faulty light fixture on the 47th floor, he overheard 2 executives talking as they walked past. Carter is ice cold. The board loves it. Ruthless, you mean? Did you see the memo about the healthcare plan changes? Right when people are losing their jobs. It's business. Nothing personal. Marcus's hands stilled. Healthcare plan changes? He quickly finished the repair and made his way to the maintenance office, where he found the company-wide memo that had been distributed that morning. Buried in corporate jargon was the announcement that Meridian was switching insurance providers to cut costs. The transition period meant that certain ongoing treatments would need reapproval. Treatments like Lily's. His hands shook as he read the details. Even if he managed to keep his job somehow, Lily's treatment could be denied or delayed during the transition. The timing couldn't be worse. That afternoon, as he was fixing a leaking pipe in the executive bathroom, the door swung open. Evelyn Carter walked in, phone pressed to her ear. I don't care about the optics, Jason. The numbers speak for themselves. We're cutting 15% of workforce and reducing benefits overhead by 20%. The shareholders will be thrilled. She stopped short when she saw Marcus, giving him a brief nod of acknowledgement before continuing her conversation in a slightly lower voice. Marcus kept his head down, but his ears caught every word. The insurance transition is already in motion. Yes, there will be some disruption for employees with ongoing medical issues, but that's why we've structured the severance packages as we have. It's not our problem if they can't maintain continuity of care. Not our problem. The words echoed in Marcus's head as he methodically finished the repair, gathered his tools, and left without a word. That night, as he sat beside Lily's hospital bed helping her with her homework, an idea began to form. A desperate, dangerous idea. Evelyn's morning routine was a marvel of efficiency. 60 minutes of yoga and meditation, 20 minutes for breakfast and coffee, 15 minutes to review overnight emails, 30 minutes in the car reviewing the day's agenda while her driver navigated Manhattan traffic. Today, a board presentation on the successful implementation of the first phase of cuts. The numbers were even better than projected. She had exceeded expectations, as always. "Good morning, Miss Carter," her assistant said as Evelyn strode through the executive suite. "Your 9 a.m. was pushed to 10, and these need your signature." She handed Evelyn a stack of documents. "Thank you, Claire." Evelyn took the papers to her office, closing the door behind her. She had barely settled at her desk when she noticed something out of place, a small, plain envelope with her name handwritten on the front. Curious, she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message composed of letters cut from magazines, like an old-fashioned ransom note. Asterisk, I know what you're doing to save money. I know who it's hurting. Meet me at 8 p.m. tonight in the parking garage, level B3, if you don't want everyone else to know too, asterisk. Evelyn's first instinct was to laugh. Was this some kind of joke? Her second was irritation. Who would dare? Her third was a tiny flicker of unease. What exactly did the writer think they knew? She pressed the intercom. "Claire, did you see who left this envelope on my desk?" "No, Miss Carter. It wasn't there when I left last night." Evelyn frowned, examining the envelope more carefully. No fingerprints visible, no distinctive markings. Just her name in block capitals. "Get security to pull the footage from the cameras in this office overnight," she instructed. 2 hours later, security reported that there had been a brief power fluctuation at 3:17 a.m. that had caused a gap in the footage. When the cameras came back online, the envelope was on her desk. Whoever had left it knew exactly what they were doing. Throughout the day, Evelyn found herself distracted by the note. What could someone possibly know that would be damaging enough to attempt blackmail? The restructuring was perfectly legal, the insurance changes standard practice during cost-cutting measures. There was nothing to hide. And yet, by 7:45 p.m., against her better judgment and the advice of her security team, Evelyn found herself walking into the nearly deserted parking garage. Level B3 was reserved for maintenance vehicles and storage. The lighting was dimmer here, the concrete walls dripping with condensation from ancient pipes. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "I'm here as requested." A figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. It took her a moment to recognize him, the maintenance worker she'd seen fixing the executive bathroom. He was holding a manila folder. "You?" Evelyn said, more surprised than frightened. "You're behind this childish threat?" "My name is Marcus Wilson," he said quietly. "I work in maintenance. For 2 more days, at least." "Mr. Wilson, I don't know what you think you're doing, but corporate blackmail is a criminal offense. I'm willing to overlook this bizarre behavior if you leave now and forget whatever misguided plan you've concocted." Instead of looking intimidated, Marcus simply opened the folder and removed several pages. 2 months ago, Meridian's legal team was advised that the new insurance provider had a history of denying claims for certain pediatric autoimmune treatments. They advised you to delay the transition or create a special exception protocol for affected employees. Evelyn felt a chill. That memo had been confidential, seen by only her and 3 senior executives. You implemented the change anyway, Marcus continued, and specifically directed HR not to notify affected employees until after the transition was complete. Where did you get this information? Evelyn demanded, her mind racing through the possibilities. A leak in legal? Someone in HR? I have a daughter, Marcus said, ignoring her question. Lily. She's 9. She has a rare autoimmune condition that requires specialized treatment. Treatment our current insurance covers, but your new provider will likely deny. Understanding dawned. So this is personal. It's personal for the 73 Meridian employees with family members whose ongoing medical care will be disrupted or denied, Marcus replied. I did my homework, Ms. Carter. I found them all. I've spoken to them all. He handed her another document, a list of names, conditions, treatments, and potential impacts of the insurance change. The projected medical costs under the new plan were highlighted in angry red. What exactly do you want, Mr. Wilson? Evelyn asked, her voice controlled despite the growing knot in her stomach. I want you to delay the insurance transition until adequate provisions are made for these families. And I want you to review the layoff list and reconsider cutting positions held by primary caregivers of chronically ill dependents. Evelyn almost laughed. You want me to restructure a multi-billion-dollar corporation's entire efficiency initiative based on your personal circumstances? Based on basic human decency, he corrected. And if you refuse, these documents, and several others detailing how Meridian knowingly violated its fiduciary duty to employees, go to every major news outlet tomorrow morning. Now Evelyn did laugh, but it was cold. You're bluffing. Those documents are meaningless without context, and no reputable news source would run with stolen internal memos. You're probably right, Marcus conceded. But they might be interested in the recording of your conversation with the CFO where you specifically discussed how to time the transition to minimize the company's financial responsibility for ongoing treatments. Evelyn went very still. What recording? Marcus took out his phone and pressed play. Her own voice filled the parking garage. We time the transition for July 15th, after the quarter closes but before the fall treatment cycles begin. That way we're only on the hook for summer maintenance doses, not the more expensive intervention protocols. The CFO's voice followed, some of these families won't be able to afford the gap in coverage. Her response was damning, that's not our problem, Jason. We're running a business, not a charity. Evelyn felt the blood drain from her face. That conversation had been in her office, behind closed doors. How? She whispered. I was fixing the air vent directly above your office that day, Marcus said simply. You never even looked up. The implications were staggering. If that recording went public, her career would be over. The board would distance themselves immediately, shareholders would revolt, and her reputation would be irrecoverably damaged. What you're doing is illegal, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. What you're doing is immoral, he countered. I'm just trying to protect my daughter. And all the other daughters and sons and parents who work for you. Evelyn squared her shoulders. I need time to consider this. You have until tomorrow morning, Marcus said. I'm not trying to destroy Meridian or your career. I just want my daughter to get the treatment she needs. And I think, deep down, you don't want to be the person who denies that to her. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Evelyn alone in the dimly lit garage, the echo of her own callous words still ringing in her ears. Evelyn barely slept that night. She called an emergency meeting with legal counsel, who confirmed her worst fears. The recording, while obtained improperly, would be devastating in the court of public opinion. The board would almost certainly ask for her resignation to contain the damage. She had worked so hard to get here. Sacrificed so much. And now it could all be undone by a maintenance worker with a sick child. At 4 a.m., she found herself doing something she hadn't done in years. She Googled pediatric autoimmune conditions and began reading about treatments, prognosis, and impacts on families. The stories she found were heartbreaking. Children spending more time in hospitals than playgrounds. Parents working multiple jobs to cover what insurance wouldn't. Families bankrupted by medical debt. Families like Marcus Wilson's. By dawn, she had made her decision. Marcus was changing Lily's bag when his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Wilson, this is Evelyn Carter. I'd like to meet with you this morning. My office, 8 a.m. Her voice gave nothing away. I'll be there, he said, looking at his sleeping daughter. Whatever happened next, he had tried his best for her. At precisely 8 a.m., Marcus stood outside Evelyn's office, still in his maintenance uniform. Claire, her assistant, gave him a curious look as she buzzed him in. Evelyn was standing by the window, her back to the door. Without turning, she said, "Close the door, please." When she finally faced him, Marcus was surprised to see that she looked as though she hadn't slept. The immaculate CEO showed cracks in her armor, a wrinkled blouse, hair not quite perfectly styled, dark circles under her eyes. "I've reviewed your materials," she began, gesturing to the folder on her desk. "And I've spent the night considering my options." "And?" Marcus asked, his heart racing. "And I've concluded that you've put me in an impossible position, Mr. Wilson." "My daughter is in an impossible position," he countered. "All I'm asking is for you to do the right thing." "The right thing," she repeated, as if testing the words. "Do you know what the board would say if I suddenly reversed course on initiatives I've spent months championing? They'd say I'm weak. Emotional. Too female to make the hard decisions business requires." "Maybe business shouldn't require hurting children," Marcus said quietly. Something flickered across Evelyn's face, a brief crack in her professional mask. She walked to her desk and pressed a button on her phone. "Claire, please have Richard Harmon come to my office immediately. And gather the executive team in the boardroom in 30 minutes. Marcus tensed. "What are you doing?" "What you forced me to do, Mr. Wilson." 20 minutes later, Richard Harmon, chairman of the board, entered Evelyn's office with a concerned expression. "Evelyn? Your assistant said it was urgent." "It is," she replied, gesturing for him to sit. Marcus remained standing by the window, feeling increasingly like he'd miscalculated badly. "Richard, I need to inform you of a situation that has developed," Evelyn began. "Mr. Wilson here has brought to my attention some serious concerns about our restructuring plans, specifically regarding the insurance transition." Harmon's eyes darted to Marcus, narrowing slightly. "And why is a maintenance employee involved in executive decisions?" "Because his daughter will die without her treatments," Evelyn said bluntly. "Treatments our new insurance provider will likely deny." Harmon's expression hardened. "Evelyn, we've been over this. The transition will save us millions." "At what cost?" she interrupted, pushing a document toward him, the list Marcus had compiled. 73 families, Richard. Children, spouses, parents. People who have given years to this company, whose lives will be devastated. This is business, Evelyn. Not personal. It became personal the moment Mr. Wilson made me see the human cost of our decisions, Evelyn said, her voice gaining strength. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting this afternoon. I'll be recommending that we delay the insurance transition by 6 months and implement a continuity of care provision for affected employees." Harmon stared at her in disbelief. "Have you lost your mind? The shareholders will understand that a company that abandons its most vulnerable employees is not one they should be proud to invest in," she finished for him. "And if the board disagrees, they can have my resignation." The chairman's face flushed with anger. "Is that a threat?" "It's a choice, Richard." "My choice." Marcus watched the exchange with growing amazement. This was not what he had expected, not at all. "You're making a grave mistake," Harmon said, standing abruptly. "I'll see you at the board meeting." After he stormed out, Marcus found his voice. "Why are you doing this? You could have called my bluff, or found a way to discredit me." Evelyn sighed, suddenly looking very tired. "Last night, I found myself wondering what my father would do in this situation. He built this company from nothing, but he was ruthless. Absent. I spent my entire childhood trying to earn his approval, and my entire adult life trying to be like him." She turned to face Marcus fully. "Your daughter, Lily, right? What would happen to her without this treatment?" Marcus swallowed hard. "The disease would progress. She'd lose mobility, then organ function. Eventually." He couldn't finish the sentence. "My father died alone in a hospital room with only his assistant present," Evelyn said quietly. "I was in London, closing a deal he had started. I thought he would be proud of me for putting business first." She looked down at her hands. "I don't want to be that person anymore, Mr. Wilson. I don't want to be the CEO who values spreadsheets over human lives. Even if it costs you your job." Even then. There was a long moment of silence between them. "What happens now?" Marcus finally asked. "Now, I go into that boardroom and fight for your daughter and the 72 other families," Evelyn said with newfound resolve. "And you go back to your job, which, by the way, is no longer being eliminated." Marcus felt his eyes burn with unshed tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll destroy that recording," Evelyn replied with the ghost of a smile. "And maybe someday you'll let me meet Lily. I'd like to know the girl who inadvertently changed the direction of Meridian Industries." The board meeting was as contentious as Evelyn had anticipated. Richard Harmon and his allies were furious, arguing that her proposal would destroy shareholder value and set a dangerous precedent. But Evelyn was prepared. She presented data showing the long-term benefits of employee loyalty, the public relations advantage of being seen as a company that cared for its workforce, and the minimal impact on the bottom line when spread over 2 fiscal years. When the shouting reached its peak, Evelyn stood silently at the head of the table, waiting for the room to quiet. "My father built this company with a vision," she said when she finally had their attention. "He wanted to create something that would outlast him, that would matter. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that companies aren't just balance sheets and profit margins. They're people. Human beings with lives and families who depend on the decisions we make in rooms like this." She looked each board member in the eye. "I was hired to increase shareholder value. I intend to do that. But not at the expense of our humanity. If that's not acceptable to this board, my resignation is on the table." 3 hours later, the board voted 7-5 in favor of Evelyn's proposal. Richard Harmon abstained, his expression unreadable. 6 months later, Marcus sat in a different hospital room, watching Lily draw pictures with her new art supplies. Her color had returned, her energy levels stabilizing under the continued treatment that Meridian's amended insurance plan now fully covered. A soft knock at the door made them both look up. Evelyn Carter stood there, a gift bag in hand, looking remarkably different in jeans and a casual sweater. "Ms. Carter!" Lily exclaimed, recognizing her from her visit the previous month. "Did you bring me another book?" "Better," Evelyn smiled, handing over the gift bag. "Art supplies from that store you mentioned. Your dad said you were running low." As Lily eagerly explored her new treasures, Evelyn sat beside Marcus. "How are things at Meridian?" he asked. He'd been promoted to facilities manager after Tom Hendricks retired, but he rarely saw Evelyn these days. "Different," she admitted. "The board is still adjusting to my new management style. Richard Harmon retired last month." "Any regrets?" Evelyn watched Lily arranging her new colored pencils with meticulous care. "Not a single one. Our first quarter under the new policies showed improved employee retention and productivity. Turns out treating people like they matter is good for business. Marcus nodded, remembering the tense parking garage confrontation that felt like a lifetime ago. I never thanked you properly. For listening. For changing. I should be thanking you, Evelyn said softly. You reminded me of who I wanted to be before I lost my way. Lily looked up from her artwork. Dad says you saved my life. Evelyn shook her head. No, Lily. Your dad saved your life. He was brave enough to fight for you, even when it seemed impossible. And you were brave enough to listen, Marcus added. As they sat together in the hospital room, an unlikely trio connected by circumstance and choice, Marcus realized something profound. Sometimes the most shocking decisions aren't acts of defiance or revenge, but simple acts of humanity, choosing compassion when coldness would be easier. The CEO who had once declared that employees' suffering wasn't her problem, now spent her weekends visiting a little girl in the hospital, reading her stories and bringing art supplies. And the maintenance worker who had been driven to desperate measures now led Meridian's newly formed Employee Advocacy Committee, ensuring that the company's most vulnerable workers always had a voice in the boardroom. Two people from different worlds, brought together by crisis, now united in purpose. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Sometimes the most powerful acts of courage aren't grand gestures, but the simple decision to see another person's humanity and respond with compassion. We all have the power to change someone's world, or even an entire company, if we're brave enough to stand for what's right. What would you have done in Marcus's or Evelyn's position? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to join our community for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity.